This is part two of our two-part rapid rehousing series for this year. Hi, my name is Eli Hamilton. I work with Home Base. Most of you either recognize me or probably know Home Base, but we are a nonprofit that works with the County Office of Supportive Housing to support you all as providers in the unhoused system of care. We do a lot of work specifically with some federal funding streams, which have been a lot going on recently. But we also do a series of free trainings that are open to any providers in Santa Clara County working with people who are unhoused or at risk of losing their housing. As I said, this is part two of a two-part series this year. The first part was a while ago. It was at the end of March, and then we had a bunch of other urgent training topics scheduled, so we delayed this till today. I'm very excited to share with you our agenda for today. We're going to start with a rapid rehousing practitioner panel. We have some folks who've very generously offered to join us today and share just some of their experience doing the work of being a rapid rehousing case manager. I'm going to start with some questions that I've prepared ahead of time just to get the thoughts of some of your colleagues about what some of the main topics we get questions about all the time. And then we will have some time for audience Q&A. So if you're thinking of questions, if you have a follow-up question to something someone says, if you have a tough thing you're struggling with right now, keep those questions in mind, don't lose them, and we will set aside some time for audience Q&A. And then we'll wrap up the training with returning to the idea of housing stability planning. So our first session earlier in the year focused on the first couple of steps of creating a housing stability plan with a participant, assessing needs, setting goals, and step three is all about supporting long-term housing stability. And that's what we're going to be focusing on probably in the second hour of the training today. We will have a break of about 10 minutes around 2 o'clock. Might be 1:55, might be 2 o'clock, but we will have about a 10-minute break at that point. Other housekeeping things. This training is being recorded currently. I'm checking that that's true. Yes. And it'll be shared out. My colleague Sadika will share the recording. It'll be on the COC website as well. Okay. So I want to start with just audience intros. Love to let everybody see who's in the room, who their colleagues are sharing the space today. So if you could head to the chat and let us know your name, if you're with an organization, what organization are you with, what role you're here in today, what role you're representing. Are you a rapid housing case manager? Are you in the homelessness prevention system? Are you a community volunteer? And also tell us, please, pool or beach and why. Because I want to start a little heated controversy in the chat today. So name, organization, if you're affiliated with one, your role, and then pool or beach and why. And I just put that prompt in the chat. And I will also model. My name is Eli Hamilton. My pronouns are he, him. I am with Home Base. My role in this meeting today is as a facilitator and a trainer. And I prefer the beach because of the wide open spaces. And I think larger bodies of water, just I don't get up in my head as much about them. They seem more inviting. Go ahead and put that in the chat. And maybe if we have an overwhelming majority for one versus the other, we'll cancel the training and we'll just all go to the beach or the pool. How does that sound? Nice. Bonfires, yeah. Yeah, sand versus no sand. It just really depends on how you stand on sand, maybe. Okay. Thanks everyone for being here. I encourage you all to take a look at who's in the chat. Yeah, hearing the ocean is nice. Okay, well, if we'd had unanimous beach, I would have canceled the training and picked you all up and taken you to the beach, but we do have some pool folks and that wouldn't be fair to them, so let's do a training instead. Okay. So I'm going to actually take down our slides. And just again, we'd love to see your faces, but I do want to highlight again, this is being recorded. That's totally fine. I just want to let you know so you can make that decision whether you want to have your face visible or not. Okay, so I'm going to briefly introduce our panel, and then my first question to them is going to ask them to introduce themselves a lot more. Go ahead and give a wave. Juan Gell from the County Office of Supportive Housing, Christine Caldwell, also from the county, and Timothy Jones from Home First. And I'm just going to pick y'all for the first one. And then for the next questions, I'll let you volunteer to go first. But Juan, would you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your experience with rapid rehousing case management.
Good afternoon. My name is Juan Gould Jr. with OSH. I'm a program manager and also a contract monitor for rapid rehousing programs with the county. Some of my experience with rapid rehousing case management, I started working in rapid rehousing programs probably in 2011 with the boat services in Alameda County. Actually started their very first rapid rehousing program that they had. At the time, there was only one. So as they've expanded into 5, 4, 6 counties, I don't know where they're at now. Um, I've had some experience in helping develop programs. Not only that, but also bring some other housing programs into the rapid rehousing model, the national model, which includes, an adjusted subsidy, a gradually decreasing subsidy, some looser guidelines around, client need and that sort of thing, and creating the housing stability plans as part of the case management process and rapid rehousing for folks that are starting to work, that are looking to exit the program, that are looking to set goals around their housing stability. So that's kind of my experience. I now monitor, I'm a contract monitor for some rapid rehousing programs in Santa Clara County as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Let's see. Timothy, would you like to go next? Oh, did we lose Timothy? Christine, would you like to go next?
Sure. Same question?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Caldwell. I'm one of the managers here at the
part of April at Mark as well.
Someone needs to put themselves on mute. I'm with the Office of Supportive Housing and one of the managers here. I actually, when I years ago worked at Home First, back then we were calling that transitional housing, and I was running Sobrato Family and Vicardo Family, which was a little bit similar to rapid rehousing. The permanency was not in place. We had to work with the clients to get them into permanent stable housing, so slightly different, but kind of the same concept, limited time for them to be there. I was the manager over there, and then a while after that, I was over at Abode, and at Abode, I started Santa Clara TPRA, which is a rapid rehousing program that provides 24 months of assistance for families. So that's been my experience with working with them. So I haven't been a case manager, but I've managed a rapid rehousing program along with SSVF under Abode. When SSVF and Home First were working together, Abode was the housing element. So I was working on that program then.
Thank you, Christine. And Timothy.
I think I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My name's Timothy Jones. I am a case manager, rapid rehousing, reentry, and individuals in Santa Clara County for Home First. I've been doing this at this organization for a little under 2 years. Before this, my intro into the unhoused services for Santa Clara County was at an organization called Downtown Streets Team. as an employment specialist slash like first point of contact intake into the HMIS system for new clients. And then I took a break from that after 2 years and then started a small nonprofit in Alameda County called New Garden Farms, which dealt with localized farming and donating to the local food banks. So that qualifies in terms of like low income services that I was a part of in the food insecurity space, which was a nice bridge between low income and food services.
Awesome. Thank you all again for being here. And I want to say, I know we have a lot of people in the room who have a lot of range of experience with providing different forms of case management and support. And I would encourage you all to, as I'm asking the questions of the panel, definitely think about follow-up questions you have, but also consider sharing some of your experiences in the chat as we go. Um, we definitely appreciate the huge resource that we have in our panelists, but I also want to encourage some peer sharing in the chat as well. Okay. So my first question for the panel, for panel discussion is for rapid rehousing case management or really case management in any time limited housing program or support program. How often would you recommend, or how often do you try to make contact with participants, just like reaching out, checking in? And also, how often do you try to meet with them about their housing stability planning? Um, would that change based on the person? And how do you think about that? How do you think about figuring that out?
For me, when I was a case manager slash housing specialist before they were separated when we first started rapid rehousing, I would target to meet with them on a monthly basis. When they first move in, you might need to meet with them more often. And all clients' needs are a little bit different. So some clients would need a little bit more attention, especially initially. Later on in the program, I might just need to touch base with them on a monthly basis. I would try to always make that a home visit if possible. But I think it's critical in these programs that home visits are part of the program, that happens at the very least on a quarterly basis. Something I didn't mention about my case management experience, for one, that I was a case manager to start. For two, that I also do the SPDAT trainings for the county. And as many of you may know, if you work rapid rehousing, the SPDAT is a case management tool for rapid rehousing service providers, and it's written into all the county's rapid rehousing contracts. So I do that training on a quarterly basis. So if anybody needs it, they can send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll make sure you're registered for that. But that needs to be done. This should be targeted to be completed with your clients as an assessment and a way to track a client's progress in your program, as well as decide exactly where your case management supports are going to go in a kind of organized way. That should be done on every 90 days. Yeah.
For myself, as what Juan was saying, that's fairly accurate in terms of like the kind of the expectations. Uh, in the beginning, I meet with them more often. Then I kind of hand them off to the housing specialist and let the housing specialist work with them a little closer for a couple weeks or a month. And then I will go back to trying to visit them at least once a month. If somebody is hard to get a hold of as the program progresses, it either means that they are incredibly stable and are working full time and they just can't make time for me after, before 5 p.m. Or it means they need more attention and they're not accurately telling me about their issues. So there's always this, when that happens, there's this point, it's usually around the 9th month of a 12-month subsidy program, which is what I do, where I get a little nervous and I try to increase, I try to get at least proof that they are actually busy, they are working, and which does usually happen on a quarterly basis anyway. But I try to be a little bit more involved around the 9th month just to make sure they're going to exit successfully.
Just to sort of piggyback on what Juan and Timothy were saying, I too, in the beginning, when I was doing Santa Clara Tibra under abode, we would kind of give the new clients just a opportunity when they moved in to sort of settle in. You know, most all of them had families, so kids along, so getting them squared away as far as assisting with them of making sure their kids are enrolled in school and whatever issues that they may have. And then I really encourage to meet twice a month because I think, my expression would always be with my case managers is TikTok, right? Like you got 24 months. And these folks are living in units that are they're expensive. We're in Santa Clara County, right? So if you have a single parent with three kids who's not working and at the end needs to make $2,800 to afford their rent, like there's not a whole lot of time that we want to give to just sort of sit and let the client adjust. I understand that that's important to have them adjust, but then building circles of support around them to get whatever needs. If they need therapy, like we're help them, connect with a therapist. If they need medical help, like we're as a case manager, just figuring that out with the client. So I would always encourage my staff to make sure they're building a rapport that the clients want to meet with them twice a month. And oftentimes we would really push about doing that in the home. And again, because it's a way to assess what needs they might have, what's going on in the situation. So that was something we really pushed. We often always did that. Most of the clients that our team had worked with were really open to not having to travel, right? Like, yeah, come to my house and we will do a case management session here rather than meeting in the office, because then you have to deal with transportations and things like that. So our staff was very much like, we're going to go and do home visits. But it was my experience that it's a little bit, in my opinion, it's a little bit more intense than maybe other clients with permanent subsidies, right? So that's something that I just really think is important to keep reminding the client, not to scare them, of course, but just to remind them like there's an end date here, right? Like the assistance is not going to continue. So for me, I really think that more than once a month is necessary.
Something else I wanted to add is that these housing stability plans, they should be revisited on a regular basis. And then they could be changed at any point. Life happens. As your clients are going on, they go from homelessness, now they're housed, they're creating some goals, and they're marching towards program exit, which means they're self-sufficient, right? Well, in the meantime, they could lose a job, somebody could come in and out of the household. Any number of things could be a challenge for them or an obstacle that they have to overcome. And it should be no problem to just revisit what their housing stability plan is, any timelines that they've made, and redo them whenever they need to. Matter of fact, it's an excellent exercise because what you're trying to do is give them the tools, teach them how they can continue to set goals for themselves, write things down for themselves, pivot a little bit when you need to, but make sure you still have, the end goal in sight at some point. And this is going to help them in the long term. At one point, they became homeless. So maybe there was a point where they weren't able to do that, or maybe they don't have kind of that planning process, especially once they get into survival mode when they're homeless. So once they're back stably housed, as you're working on that, you to revisit that, I think is very important to be able to change it whenever the need is there.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. I actually want to bring in my next question, which is, I think Timothy was already very much speaking to this, which I appreciate. This is like a type of question that comes up in almost every training that I'm in about case management strategies and approaches, which is, what do you do when a participant just doesn't want to seem to engage with you or engage with the program? They said yes to the program, they enrolled, but now maybe they're not responding to any communication, unless their like rent payment is at risk, or they won't meet with you in person, they won't show up, or they just like there's some barrier that they have to engaging. Like, do you see that? And what are some of the things that you think about or try? Whoever would like to jump in first. Go ahead, Timothy.
Yeah. Um, Happens all the time. Happens with nearly every client. There's going to be a time when they're in the program, they had all of these really great ideas and plans, and some of them fall through. I mean, that's just a part of life. So my job is to try and prevent them from snowballing into anxiety, depression, whatever it might be during that moment, letting them know that we all go through these bumps along the way, and let's try to refocus in the moment and carry on. Um, Luckily, there's some wiggle room with the funding in rapid rehousing. So when those do come up, it's possible for me to advocate to management and the money people to allow for extensions or slightly changing the subsidy to accommodate for that. I do think it's really important to hold them accountable through all of that, let them know very clearly that this is additional support outside of the regular schedule, and make sure it's followed up with a certain amount of evidence, whether it's bank statements or something else showing the issue. It could be, I don't know, their benefits got cut, or a medical bill or a car bill. When those sort of things happen, um, it feels like they're not engaging, or sometimes they don't even bring that to my attention. So the constant communication helps with that, but I I kind of phrase it in the way I just did in terms of them not communicating or not participating, because most of the time it's not that they are just simply ignoring the program. It's longstanding habits from years of whether it's incarceration or certain lifestyles, and they just oftentimes people don't understand how to advocate for themselves, how to take a moment of struggle and communicate that. They just kind of shut down and ignore. So uh I think it's really important to like talk through that with them, let them know that there's still support, and that usually helps people get on track. There are a certain percentage of people who just aren't ready for this program, and in that case, we offer them all the support we have, whether it's financial or case management. And if they still aren't able to utilize that at this time, my approach is no one's a lost cause. It might not be correct in this time around, but luckily the county system and the resource system allows them to rejoin and reapply for services at a later date. And when I get somebody and I go through their HMIS profile and I see that they've been a part of rapid rehousing before or in and out of shelters, it's a clean slate when I work with them. I have to treat somebody like this time is going to be the time that they're successful. And having that approach really helps me, I think, navigate those moments of lack of communication or what feels like somebody not participating.
Yeah, thanks for that, Timothy. I really appreciate like a lot of what you're talking about is really about what is the human experience that's behind the thing that I'm seeing. Like you're getting to the like why? Why is this happening and what support can I reach out with? Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, from my experience, how you set up that relationship with every client is critical in rapid rehousing. Everything from on the day that they move in, if you're working on a program that has a gradually decreasing subsidy, you know what the rent is. You have target dates for the date that the rent's gonna change. You could write all that out and make sure you post it on a fridge with a magnet. Matter of fact, use a magnet that can go on the back of your business card. So you use that to post that up there on the fridge and say, okay, those are all our target dates. That's what we're working on. We need to make adjustments. We'll make adjustments to your housing stability plan, but those dates aren't changing. And you can point to them across the room and say, those dates are up there. Me and you are going to work together to kind of get there. And Timothy mentioned accountability. You got to make sure you're showing them what that is. You can hold me accountable for making sure your subsidy is on time. I'm going to be here to provide resources for you on a monthly basis. I'm going to help track, your housing stability plan. We can make adjustments as needed. So I'm going to listen to what's happening to you, what your challenges are, try to help you with those resources. That's my accountability. Your accountability is to make sure you're paying your portion of rent, you're abiding by your lease terms, and that you're taking care of the inside of your unit. Those are all the only things the landlords really care about, and that you're working towards a successful exit. So we're going to work together on that. I have a role, you have a role. Let's move forward with that. And the times that I've had clients, uh, if you establish a good rapport, and every client's a little bit different, so you got to go at it with a little bit of tact differently depending on the client's personality. But when I've had clients not want to meet with me, sometimes they think if they go off track, that okay, the programs, I'm gonna try to avoid this guy, because I'm not following the program. I can't afford the rent. He's gonna, try to kick me out. I've been through this before, that kind of thing. But if you're establishing setting goals, good communication, accountability, and they see that those things can change, and we're gonna adjust your plan, you're encouraging them. Hey, you let me know right away when you didn't pay that rent this month, when you're having some challenges. If you're making sure you leave a space open through your monthly home visits to right away ask, did you pay your rent? Did you pay it on time? Did you send a receipt? That sort of thing. If they had a challenge, to let you know right away, and they understand what the main part of the program is paying that rent, being able to do so at the end. But also, if they did pay it, you give them a win. You start off every meeting with, all right, you did pay it. Good job, man. That's 3 months in a row. You're doing great. You're doing a great job. And I'm sure it's not easy. So let's talk about that. So it's important to give your client the space and opportunity to celebrate those wins, but be open to hearing what their challenges are and that you're going to work through them together. They have a responsibility with that. And as your responsibility is, you're going to provide some support with that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Martinez, and I'm sorry I had a little rocky start when it came to this meeting. We are currently doing a resource fair at the same time, so I had to step away, be able to join you guys because this is a very vital segment. And I just wanted to chime in. I provide progress trackers and goal worksheets as my accountability tools. I always end my sessions with action steps and who does what and when, and I follow up with an email. And then I ask my clients to send a check-in emoji each week that is just a tiny little touch point that keeps us connected. And I send reminder texts with humor and encouragement. So that's just building that relationship together. I start all of my youth off. This will be my first project here because I'm new in the role, but it is uh, sending them through a financial workshop for 8 weeks. And at the end, they have created a portfolio for themselves that can be presented to affordable housing management companies. And so I'm bringing them through, and I have 13 years teaching junior achievement, which helps me get them geared up to be great candidates for housing.
Thanks for that, Amber. And I think, Amber, because you joined a little bit after we did our intros, we're doing a panel today with Juan, Christine, and Timothy. And I've encouraged everybody to share their input, but I'd love for everybody but Juan, Christine, and Timothy to do that in the chat just for time, because I want to make sure to get through all the
Oh,
questions
I'm
with the
sorry.
panel. Oh,
I
no,
did
you're
not hear
good.
that part. I apologize.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. That's really excellent advice. And it's like absolutely everybody do keep putting, any other thoughts you have or any other strategies in the chat. It is for time because I have a few other questions I want the panel to talk about.
Something that I have found to be really useful is to have a participation agreement of some sort when you start, on the day that they're moving in or the day that they're not even if they're moving in, they're just coming, they've just been referred to your program and you're meeting them for the first time. And it's obviously very important that you're building rapport with the client, but also really getting their buy-in for their own goals, right? And having them sign it. It's been my experience with any client, like their word means something. You write it down, most people want to keep their word, right? I don't care what they've gone through. If you refer back to like you said you wanted to do these goals, like we worked on this together. So when they are being a little dodgy and don't want to meet with you, it's just bringing that up like, hey, we've got these goals that we want to work on together, right? And you signed this and this is what you want to do, right? And it's been just my experience, if you're genuinely making these goals with the clients, like you're in it with them, right? You're committed to their success in this program, right? And you know what's at stake. Like if you can like get into that and get the clients buy-in and get them to sign that, I have found that to be very successful. I mean, that even works with clients that are really struggling along the way, that it's like, I want to hold my word. Like, folks don't always have much when they're coming in, right? They've got trauma, they've got, family issues going on. There's, people, they didn't just get there overnight, right? It's been a bunch of maybe poor decisions that have been made. And now they have this unique opportunity. I think when they sign that piece of paper, if you're like really in it with them, like I feel like there's a strong likelihood that they'll turn around, that they'll say like, you know what, you're right, because you're there to support them. You're there to help them, figure out the challenges that they have, whether it's resources. Sometimes it's like, okay, it looks like we're paying this person's rent because their registration was due, and they had to pay their registration for their car so they could go to work. And I want to encourage that. So you have this unique opportunity to cheer them along. So I think really just that early engagement piece and just being like really there for the move, and you shouldn't miss any of those times, right? Like that's key, because that's when you're building that. The case manager is like the biggest support, the biggest fan. So I think, again, sometimes it's difficult when there's staff changes too, right? Like you got a case manager that was there for the first 12 months, and we know how it is. They moved on, they went to another program, and the new person is coming in, and just making sure, again, like you're circling back to like, this is what you signed, and here's this new case manager that's going to pick up where the old one is, and just making sure that there's that warm handoff when that needs to happen. But just, always coming around to, when you're meeting, to Juan's point, like talking like about the victories that you have, but also like coming back to that focus, right? Like, we've got this amount of time, and look at how far you've come, but we still got a ways to go. So I think it's really important to celebrate the wins, and to hold accountable to what you said you were going to do, because I just really believe at the end of the day, people want to keep their word. No matter who they are, they want to keep their word, and having it written down is really important.
Thank you all so much for those answers. I One of the things that I want to reflect back to y'all is I'm hearing like build a relationship as a foundation and understand the person you're working with and how they're unique and what they're going to respond to. And I'm also hearing like things that sometimes can feel like their intention, like you're having to balance of like accountability, and also it's got to be okay when someone stumbles. It's got to be okay when someone doesn't do something. We're here to support, and then we talk about how we're getting back on track. A lot of like I heard, there's a timeline here. Like we need to point to the timeline in a supportive way, and also people can get overwhelmed, and sometimes that's why they're not engaging. And like I just want to call that out, that like it can feel like you have to balance those things, but really what I'm hearing is that you bring all of that. You bring the like it's just a complex job that you're doing, supporting a human. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Eli. Um, there's this accountability, but I always have to remember that my clients aren't in these situations because they have all the tools already. They need support. I've had clients who they get housed and it takes them 2 to 4 weeks to finally go indoors. And it takes them another few weeks to not sleep with a knife on their chest anymore. So when talking about subsidy schedule, timelines, expectations, I always have this phrase in my head, which is if they knew better, they would do better, right? And that's true for all of us. If somebody really had the skill, they would probably implement it. And if they're not, it means they need some additional support, some training, whatever it might be. So I can never fault somebody for not meeting their goal in time or in the way that we thought. It's just another time to pivot and change the goal, change the timeline, talk about how we can go from here, and really rebrand the word failure. These aren't failures. These are just, we thought we were headed in a direction. Turns out we were wrong about the direction. So now we got to go another direction. And rebranding that really seems to help a client feel comfortable with failure over time and kind of stay on track in the long term.
Yeah, thanks for that. Move on to our next question, which is we're going to talk about income because we have to talk about income. It's, again, one of those things that comes up every time we talk to providers, especially with time-limited programs. So a lot of folks that get referred to rapid rehousing have huge barriers to increasing income. Things like just lack of work experience, criminal history, physical and behavioral health challenges, undocumented status. Are there any go-to or like key resources or strategies that you want to highlight for folks for supporting housing stability when folks face those kinds of barriers?
Well, I do want to encourage all of you, especially those working in rapid rehousing programs. We do have an employment initiative. Every month, we have a rapid rehousing employment initiative meeting. It's on the fourth Thursday of the month. My email's in the chat. I could sign you up so that you get the invites for that meeting. Not only that, but every single time we have job train come to those meetings and bring resources, the upcoming resource fairs, employment fairs, who's hiring, which employers are, you know, a little bit more loose on background checks and things like that. So I highly encourage any of you, especially working in a rapid rehousing program, to come to those meetings on a regular basis. But that's just a resource. So more than anything, as a service provider, you have to fill your tool belt as you're working with these clients with resources for them. And one of the things I say in those meetings that I facilitate um, is don't second guess which resources should go for this client or that client because they look like they could do construction or they look like they'll do retail. No. Bring all the resources for them when you go to that home visit and say, hey, you can, you can get into nursing or you can do construction or you can, go into retail. Here's all the reasons. This is the stuff that's coming up. Let's talk about it. And worst case, they say none of those pertain to me. Great. What do you like? What are you looking for? Let's have that conversation. And then I could start bringing you targeted resources. But I'm not going to, what you say this month and what you're willing to do or like to do, maybe that'll change the next month kind of coming forward. So you want to encourage a client to be open as they're going from homelessness to now housed to now looking towards exit and wanting to remain stably housed. One of the things you want to kind of put in their head is to be open to pivoting a little bit and doing what you got to do to get that income increased, go in maybe a different direction in the field, maybe they hadn't done before. That the priority of income and being able to pay that rent should be so high that they're open to other possibilities to do that. So you want to kind of set the stage for that a little bit.
I love that one. I was also thinking, one of the things that we used to do too, depending on the family, what was going on with the family, it's like, okay, do you have like, as you're looking at the end game, two things we would do is, do you have like a partner, a sister, somebody that also has income that maybe at the end of this can move in with you for a roommate, right? Because let's face it, a lot of people don't live by themselves. Probably people here, you have a roommate, right? You're sharing the cost of living. So getting them to sort of think outside of like, I've got to make this all here with me and my three kids. Like, how am I going to do this? But finding another able-bodied person that can have a job too, that can help with the household expenses and the rent, right? I think you have to sort of think bigger. And I know a lot of clients would say, well, I want to live by myself or whatever. And my case managers would be like, look, I have a roommate. So if I gotta, we all have to, this is the Bay Area. It's difficult, it's expensive. So helping them to sort of have solutions on how they can, while they're looking for work, while they're figuring it out, like, is there another opportunity for them to, stay where they're at and get a roommate, get somebody to help out? So that was one tactic that we used a lot. The other was in the beginning of the program, we would get folks because it was a scattered site program. So we would place them throughout the community, right? Sometimes we get lucky and get into some low income place that they had signed up for years ago and we would call, but oftentimes not. So what I used to tell the clients is like, keep your unit in tip top shape. Tip top shape. So the first 12 months, if you get and then apply for every low income place everywhere where you can get into a lower cost. So at the end, that's what you're like, you're looking to decrease whatever your payment is. So what we would do is if they would get in within the 12 months, we would work a deal with the property manager and say, hey, we've got this great opportunity for this client. Can we break the lease? It's it's ready to go. The unit looks great. And then they can move into the other one and we slide somebody into that other unit, right? So it was definitely like always like how many, like as they're looking to increase their income, as they're looking for other solutions for their housing, like are there other available units within the community that they can apply for? They should all be calling the housing authority and putting themselves on Section 8 wait list everywhere, right? You'd hear of an opening like Santa Cruz County is open, someplace down in LA. It's like, cool, sign up for everything. That was a huge success, is like we get down to it and somebody would be like, wham, now we've got a unit that we're only paying $1,200 for and I'm working 30 hours a week and I might be able to pull this. So it's not just like it's income and it's the other things to make it like what's the end game while teaching them like how to budget and how to it's a lot. You got a lot going on there. So that I found though was really helpful. We got a lot of folks because in 24 months, if you put your name on an application someplace, chances are you might get a call in 24 months. You might not get it in the first couple months, but by the end of it, there's a good chance that their name is going to roll up and they're going to be able to move and hopefully be able to afford whatever that rent is set at.
Really quick to piggyback on that, Christine, that's a really good point. Is that when they were homeless, whatever led them to be homeless and not having a place to stay and not being able to get out of that kind of rut and get stable again, whatever led them to that, maybe the possibilities of moving in with a cousin or their friend or back in with their mom, maybe that possibility wasn't there. That person didn't want to take on that burden, even if they were their friend or loved them or whatever the case. But after a year to 2 years of increasing their income, staying out of trouble, developing a good relationship with their landlord, paying their portion of rent. Now that the end of this program's coming up and there's a different outlook for this person. So maybe some bridges, maybe they burned previously, maybe those are open to them again. So you want to encourage that with your client as you go through the program. Well, maybe your cousin will let you move in with them. Let's get to the end of the program and let them know that you have a good landlord reference now, that you have a little bit better credit, that now you have income and now you're used to paying your rent on time and your utilities and all the rest. So that can go a long way.
Christine, that's a really good point about trying to make a deal with property managers. So the first part of this is um, be best friends with the housing specialists and make sure that you're advocating for the proper placement in housing. That is low enough. It might not be the nicest place in the world, but then communicate with the client saying this is not a forever house and this is not a forever job. It could be if you want it to, but these are stepping stones. And then what I do all the time is I go with the housing specialist, talk to the property managers, and try to get details from property managers like, oh, when's your birthday? Things like that. And I'll put it on my calendar and we'll show up and say happy birthday to the property manager. Doing those type of things, uh, some of the housing specialists I work with are better at that than others. And it's not, you don't have to do things like this, but the ones who are better at just kind of being friendly with the property managers, it's much easier to get a mutual termination agreement signed at the 6 month mark or the 8 month mark and break the lease early. And then, Christine, like you said, let them know we got someone coming who can take that place right away and fill that position. So yeah, be the property manager's best friend, be the housing specialist's best friend, and let the client know this is better than being on the streets. And then over time, we can move you into something even better as you gain more employment.
Yeah, thank you all so much for those answers. I want to open it up at this point because we're at 1:48. I want to open it up to any questions you all have in the audience. You can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand. Um, yeah, please put your toughest questions to the panel. See if you can See if you can fluster them and throw them off and make their Friday afternoon bad. No, don't do that. Uh, go ahead. Go ahead, Wei.
Yes. I, my understanding now is OSH is running a rapid rehousing program, which is very different than the traditional rapid rehousing program. So the question is, going forward, is OSH the only organization to run the rapid rehousing program, or will other organizations like Home First, Life Moves, or Abode would they also run the rapid rehousing program the traditional way they were in the past?
Let me ask you for clarification. What do you mean only one running a different rapid rehousing program? What specifically are you referring to?
So we observed in beginning of May, one of our clients, and then there are more clients got put for rapid rehousing by OSH. So OSH is doing pre-screening, OSH is collecting documents, and then the program is that the client in rapid rehousing program will be uh, living in a building, designated building, either the Alum Rock or the Tamin, I think it's a Tamin or building that's to be completed for 2 years, and they pay 30% of their income. While they're waiting to get into rapid rehousing apartments, they can also get into interim housing. So that's very different than the traditional rapid rehousing that other organizations were managing, like Home First or Life Moves or Abode or
Yeah.
BWC.
Okay.
Yeah. So are we having both at the same time, or is going to be consolidated, all going to OSH now?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that yes, we do have some site-based rapid rehousing programs that have a different subsidy structure. I will tell you, it's not unusual in our COC system or with the Office of Supportive Housing in the county system for us to have multiple types of housing and support programs. We have everything from emergency shelter, prevention program, tiny homes, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, site-based, scattered site. We don't want anybody to fall through the cracks. And different types of programs may work better for different populations and this, that, and the other. What we're trying to do is scramble and get as many resources for all the people in need in our community, which it seems we'll never have enough resources for everybody in need in our community. People hear me say that every day. However, we're constantly trying to add new funding sources, and some of those funding sources have requirements around the type of subsidy, the type of programs. We are trying different things. We're not saying a strictly gradually decreasing subsidy is the only way to go. I've also encouraged in the programs that I contract monitor for, we have a standard policies and procedures that includes a gradually decreasing subsidy. However, we can be creative with individuals within the program. For instance, if a client is working the program, making all their meetings, increasing their income, as they come to the third quarter of a 1 year program, for instance, or in the last quarter of the program that they're working, and they're doing extremely well, we could drop them down to a lot higher subsidy for that last 3 months so that they can save money. And we can therefore even more so encourage a certain level of success, so that they can successfully transition to being able to sustain their rent in the long term. So rapid rehousing by its nature is meant to be fluid and tailored to the needs of the client. Some of our programs have policies and procedures that include a gradually decreasing subsidy. We do have some programs that are site-based that include a standard subsidy, but are still rapid rehousing programs in that they're time limited. The client needs to increase their income, and there'll be some monitoring of how they increase their income and work the program and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's not that all programs are going away. We have a lot of different programs with different structures to them, because not all people are the same and not all funding sources are the same. So we're trying a lot of different things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can also add that just from the funding and the system capacity perspective, um, very likely the program you're talking about that you experienced, like the site-based rapid rehousing referral, that was added. That wasn't something that was like a different rapid rehousing model and was changed. That was a new grant that, as Juan said, like we want to try new things and different things and see what works for different people. All of the like rapid rehousing that was already funded, like if we still have that funding, it's still operating in the, as you said, the traditional way. So
So they are still Life Moves are Home First. They're still running their own rapid rehousing like they used to. At the same time, Osh
as long
is.
as that funding still exists,
I see.
yes, yeah.
I see. Got it.
We have a question in the chat from Pratima. Does an organization necessarily have to be an HMIS partner agency in order to refer a client for a rapid rehousing program? Anybody in the panel want to take that one? I think I know the answer, but
Yeah, I don't know
I,
Probably need a little
if
more clarity in that question.
I
yeah,
think,
if
let me
the
see.
agencies are referring them like because they're there, we have a system that so that people can all get in the community queue for available housing resources.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. I think
somebody
this
putting
is,
somebody in the queue doesn't necessarily have to be an HMS partner. If they're doing the assessment and therefore referring the person, they would need somebody in their agency would need to have access to HMIS. We
yeah.
do have assessors that don't, but then they provide the assessment to somebody in their agency, a data person that uploads it. So there's various ways to answer that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is definitely a coordinated entry question. So like if you are in order to be referred to rapid rehousing, to a rapid rehousing program, someone needs to be in the coordinated assessment system. They need to be assessed and they need to be entered in HMIS. And then one was talking about like there are people who can who are trained to assess and don't actually have HMIS access, but someone in their organization needs to. So like, yeah, you kind of do need to be part of an organization that's an HMIS partner in order to actually make that referral to the coordinated entry system in HMIS. If you don't have that HMIS access, there are a lot of ways to connect people to that. And I would say talk to Juan.
And the reason for that is there's not enough resources in our community for everybody in need, right? So we want it to be fair that somebody can go to any access point and have access to any number of housing support programs. But just because somebody has access to a vehicle and can actually get an appointment with one agency doesn't mean that they're going to get enrolled in a program for that particular agency. It could be somebody else who's already been waiting, maybe is available for that next spot for that particular agency's housing program, so to speak. So we want to try to make it as fair as possible for everybody in the community. So we do have the coordinated entry system to try to make that as fair as possible for everybody in need.
Okay, we have time for one more audience question if anybody has one.
Can I ask another question?
Can I wait and see if there's someone else with a question first?
Sure.
And then,
Yeah.
okay, gonna give some space. Any questions on your mind? All right, go for it.
So to me, the OSH rapid rehousing program is much better because it's 2 years and it stabilize a person. Then at the end of it, I was told because it's site-based and they can rent the apartment and at affordable rate. Two questions actually. If a client got put for a rapid rehousing program run by an organization, not OSH, and then it's because the terms are better for the OSH rapid rehousing program. And if the client reject the offer and then wait for OSH program, would there be any repercussion if the client do that? That's number one. Number two is at the end of the 2 year rapid rehousing program offered by OSH, and they are in an affordable building already, if the client is not documented, um, can they will not be able to rent affordable apartment except that if they have ITIN, then there'll be, I know some property will accept ITIN instead of social security number, but if you know, and this may be outside this group discussion, but if you know whether all affordable apartments would accept ITIN instead of social security number. Those are the two questions I have.
Maybe let's stick to the question about, so if someone gets referred to a rapid rehousing program that is all scattered site, there's no the site-based units, and they reject that referral because they really want a site-based unit, what could the repercussions be or consequences?
Yeah, if can they get pulled again? They refer back to the queue. Whether they
Stay
can
on the
get pulled
list.
again.
What happens?
Yeah. If they reject a housing opportunity, they probably would not be returned back to the community queue. It's it's not, again, not enough resource for all the people in the community. Even if they get a housing opportunity that isn't necessarily a subsidy, we're encouraging people to take advantage of that, because being on the community housing queue does not guarantee them an opportunity for housing, let alone to pick and choose which housing, specific programs are better, more favorable terms, depending on their particular income or background or whatnot. So it's so few and far between those opportunities that we highly encourage folks to take advantage of any opportunity that's presented to them. Maybe initially it's just a stepping stone to the next thing, kind of thing. We definitely would not encourage somebody to say, no, I want that particular, building because, for whatever reason or something. Because keep in mind, in order to qualify for these programs, they're homeless, right? So we definitely don't want them to continue to experience any potential traumas of being homeless while they're possibly waiting for any other opportunity that may or may not come for them. So we definitely don't want to encourage them to do that.
I think also reminding the client, if they are getting a call saying like, congratulations, there's the scattered site program that we want to put you in. That is the housing intervention that they qualify for, not a like, well, can I wait for the next opportunity too? So just maybe when you're phrasing it and clients are like, what if I get a call? They should accept that call. They should say, yes, I want the opportunity, because it's the up to Juan's point, we don't have a ton of resources. We have a lot of resources. We need more resources. There's more people than we have opportunities. So just reminding them that is the intervention that you qualified for. So you should take that opportunity. And to the site-based question, so when the clients are coming into the site-based units that we have, the amount of rent that's on their HAP, right? They're paying 30% of their income. That's the rent. That's the goal at the end of it. So if it's $1,200 for the whole HAP, that's how much it's going to cost at the end of it. So it is a permanency in place, right? They're on this, they're paying 30%, and their case management team that they're working with are getting them to be able to afford that rent and can stay in that rent. They don't need to requalify, right? They're there, they can stay there. The subsidy will just end in 24 months. So hopefully that answers the questions. They won't have to move again unless they choose to move again.
At
Or
the end, at the end of 20.
At the end of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say thank you so much to the panel, because I wanna move us to our break and then the second half. But before we let you all go to a break, Juan, Christine, Timothy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your responses, for being willing to have me put you up in front of a group of people and throw questions at you. We really, really, really appreciate it. And I just want to point to the great resources that Juan has put in the chat. And Juan also shared his email. Going to reach out.
Thank you.
Any final, maybe like any one sentence things you want to leave the group with before we go to break, panel, putting you on the spot?
I just want to thank all of you folks. This is an extremely difficult job. It's hard, and it's not like you're going to the office every day to build widgets and then you check out and you go home. Quite often we live this stuff, the ups and downs of our clients, the successes. You go to the ends of the earth for them, and sometimes they give you the middle finger. Sometimes you don't even get the thank you or whatever. So it's an extremely difficult job that not everybody could do. So I commend all of you for continuing to work through this very challenging field that we work in. And I want to encourage you, all of you, not to silo yourselves. Make sure you're sharing resources, sharing war stories, solutions and things like that, because that's the only way we're going to get to continue to put our big boy pants on every day and come in and keep doing it, even though unfortunately there'll still be homeless people tomorrow, and we'll still come in that day too.
I also just wanted to say I think that the case management for rapid rehousing is so challenging because of that 24 months. And I remember how difficult you get down to the last couple months and you're like, I don't know how this person's going to make it. And at that point you're invested. You know that there's not a great solution if they don't. So I also just want to encourage you to know that we see you. We know that this is really challenging work. I'm often saying like case management for rapid rehousing is so difficult because you're really relying on your case manager to build a rapport from the jump with the client because that clock is always ticking. So just just know that Juan and I both are we love the rapid rehousing. We know it's really challenging. We see you. We're here for support. Anything that you need. It's just keep plugging on.
Be creative. Never judge your client. Um, Always advocate for them and hold them accountable.
Beautiful. All right, wonderful. We are going to have a 10-minute break. So come back at 2:15. Please come back. I know I'm not a panelist and panels are the best, but we're going to do some fun training and discussion, a lot of discussion about supporting long-term housing stability. So yeah, come on back at 2:15. All right, come on back, folks. I'm gonna say welcome back to your screens because I am sure you all took an actual break to let yourself be human and you didn't just answer emails and do all of the other work you're not doing because you're in this training. That's the world I'm imagining for you. Regardless, welcome back to your computer screen and to our training. Okay. I think very briefly, there was one other question in the chat that I think I can do a quick answer to, and then we can absolutely connect offline. Question was if a client's in a seasonal job, like working through an agency, can they be referred to a rapid rehousing program and then have a case manager work with them? The answer is again, it's not the way that our system works in Santa Clara County. People don't get directly referred to a rapid rehousing program by a provider in the community. They get put onto the queue through coordinated entry. They get put in the coordinated entry system. And then when there is rapid rehousing capacity available, the folks that are sort of the highest priority in that system or the highest vulnerability get a referral. So through coordinated entry, the answer is yes. There's no reason that someone who has a seasonal work and is unhoused and meets all the other eligibility criteria, that person could absolutely get a rapid rehousing referral as long as they are in coordinated entry and they sort of meet the referral criteria. So hope that is a good enough quick answer, and then we can chat about coordinated entry. If you like, go ahead and reach out. Okay. So if you were able to be at our first rapid rehousing workshop session, you'll remember that we talked about assessing housing barriers and strengths, and we talked about goal setting and action planning. If you weren't able to be there, we do have a recording of that. It was sent out with the announcement for this training. Um, I think if you're interested in this content, it'd probably be worth checking out that recording. Today, we're going to talk about supporting long-term housing stability. One of the things that's come up a lot in our panel discussion is this is a time-limited program. And part of goals of rapid rehousing are not just to get someone housed during the program, but to set them up as best as possible for long-term housing stability. So I'm going to start with talking about connecting folks to services and resources that are going to support their long-term housing stability, right? This is, part of your housing stability planning. A lot of it's going to be immediate, doable short-term goals, but ultimately you're going to have the long-term goals of housing stability. So making sure that folks understand what it means to have a lease, what typical lease terms are, make sure that more than just going over it once with them, before they move in, that you're coming back to the lease to understand what it means to comply with a lease. That's important for, the participant to stay housed while they're in your program. It's also really important for, someone ideally who's going to be a tenant in the long term to know what it means to comply with a lease and also what their rights are under a lease. We've talked about increasing income, particularly if someone doesn't have the income to stay housed independently after the program, then income is going to be a big focus. Things that, you all, I'm sure, are already thinking about, but connecting clients to mainstream benefits where they qualify, and then also identifying places in the community that they're going to be able to get some of the things that they need without having to pay for them. So low cost food, access to food, like free access to food, ways to lower the cost of utilities. And again, connecting folks to those resources, making sure they know about them. And even if, they're not using them right now, making sure they know, like, hey, in the future, if you have a crisis and you're not going to be able to get groceries, these are some places you can go. Hey, in the future, if you move to a new place and you have to set up your utilities again, remember, this is how you can get a special rate in your utility if you qualify, right? Not just connecting folks, but explaining like this is the resource and this is how you can use it moving forward. Finding housing. This is a huge part of rapid rehousing, and also different rapid rehousing programs handle this differently. Some rapid rehousing programs, I think a lot in our community at this point, have a housing specialist position or a housing specialist team, or somebody who fills that role separately from case management. In some rapid rehousing programs, a case manager is providing all of the support. They are the ones helping to find the unit and connect with the landlords. Regardless, as an agency, one of the things that we know works is one of the most successful strategies is having someone at the organization who's putting in work to build a network of landlords, to do proactive outreach, to let people know about your program and how it works, so that you can then go to participants as they come in and as they're looking for housing and say, hey, we've talked about your housing goals, what you're looking for, your income. These are 3 different housing complexes where we have a relationship with the landlord, and I can tell you what it's like to live there. Um, uh, you One of the things we often also hear about is, well, what do we do when our participants uh like aren't successful in a unit and it impacts our relationship with the landlord? Well, again, getting out ahead of that is one of the best strategies. Putting your participant in a position to succeed, setting them up for success, right? So prepping your participant for interviewing with a landlord, getting letters of recommendation to go with their application. And then once they get accepted to a unit, making sure that, like, yes, there are things that they're responsible for, and that participant needs to be accountable and responsible for their, things they have to pay, reporting to landlords. But as Timothy pointed out, people aren't born with those skills. They aren't born knowing how to do that. So making sure you're checking in about, like, are there any issues in your unit that you might need to talk to your landlord about? That's not a problem. You're not going to get in trouble for that. It's just a responsibility you have. Or, how was it paying rent? Have you heard from your landlord? Did they get the rent? Just checking in. Um, and then making sure you're also, like, you're as a case manager's priority is their relationship with the client, with the participant. Make sure there's somebody at your organization whose responsibility it is to have a good relationship with the landlord, right? Who's prioritizing that relationship. We recommend that is not the same person, right? The person who is focused on being the advocate and the support for the participant, yeah, it's good for them to be on good terms with the landlord, to know the landlord, but you're focusing on the relationship with the participant. So there should be someone at the organization, ideally, who's focused on that relationship with the landlord and can, like, devote their energy to that. Okay. So our first little bit of discussion. This is open discussion. This is a question for all of you. What have you all found to be successful strategies for engaging landlords? Particularly if you have tips about finding um, units that are affordable, below market rate units, anything like that, or just in general engaging with landlords. You can share in the chat or you can come off mute.
I'd like to share.
Thank you.
I have created a financial workshop that runs for 8 weeks, and at the end, the client gets a certificate, and I have invited property management to come to be a part of it, so that the client themselves can hand their portfolio of their references letters, their credits, their resume, all of those details in a portfolio that we can hand on over to the property management so that they can get signed up and become on the wait list of that affordable housing. I find that they really would like to work with those clients because these clients have taken the time to really peel back the financial, issues that they've had, and they're working towards that. And, through my workshops, I teach them how to work with those landlords, what's in a rental contract, all these points that you have made.
That's
That's it.
awesome, Amber. Yeah, so you really have that skill building support, and then it ends in like a meet and greet with landlords. Um,
100%.
love that idea. What else do you all um, find to be successful engaging with landlords?
So what I've found out is landlords need to fill their units. They have their own expectations, responsibilities. At first, I kind of thought that we had to win them over to accept our clients because they're not, whatever. You had to like kind of argue, but turns out they just want to fill units too. And they have their expectations and their monthly and quarterly meetings to hit. So, um, treating it like it's a very even trade seems to work a lot better than thinking we have to sell them on a less than qualified client.
I absolutely agree with that because, there's incentive for taking these clients because they have a backer, they have a guarantor that comes with it. And so, they know that this person is supported by case management and that somebody else is looking out for them. So they have another point of contact than just the client itself. And I think that gives the landlords confidence. The other thing that you had asked is how do you go about finding these landlords? I use county records and I send letters out to buildings. A lot of the transitional youth that I work with, they need to be near hubs for work or for school. And so I have drafted letters that I send out to property managers and landlords who own these buildings to say, would you consider taking a contract from Bill Wilson Center? This is the parameters of the program. And I'm starting to get some traction on that, which is great. And I'm trying to build up our own little portfolio of landlords who want to work exclusively with us.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for those strategies and those ideas. Okay. So, folks who are in the first session, maybe even just folks who've done trainings with Homebase, know that we kind of love a checklist. We love a checklist as a tool for any process or any approach that you're doing repeatedly over and over, right? So we don't forget things because human brains they're not computers. So checklist for around tenant supports and lease compliance. These are a set of things that at least these things, and absolutely feel free to add to this checklist. Um, you want to check like does this participant need this and have I done it? Right? Is this something I need to check in about and make sure that we go over? So lease requirements, what happens when you violate a lease? Maybe even just a little bit about like how to like know when what might lead to an eviction and what that process looks like so folks can be aware and look out for that. Um, Making sure that you have a simplified breakdown, right? I uh, currently am in the process of my building had just got purchased by another property or another landlord, and we had to assign new leases. And I've had to read a lot of lease language lately. I went to law school and I have to read this stuff like three times. So a simplified breakdown, right? Like look at someone's lease with them and come back with like this is like in plain language the big things you need to know about. Do and don't list to better understand what a lease violation is, right? Do you need to pay your rent by this date? You cannot, I don't know, have really loud music after 10 if that's in their lease, right? What is a lease violation? What do you have to do? What do you not, what should you not do? Talking about just beyond strict lease compliance, the value of a smooth and respectful relationship with landlords and neighbors. Um, this is something like relationships with people that we are close, like in physical closeness with, but we don't know well and don't naturally care about. That's a hard thing for humans. It's a, you know, source of friction that's like cliched, right? Good fences make good neighbors. You know, again, me as example, I live in a apartment with about 120 other people. We don't have any fences. We just live next to each other and we don't know each other, right? So the skills of how do you have a positive relationship with the people around you who you don't necessarily know, is not something that comes naturally. information about how to do maintenance requests, responding to complaints from other tenants, or if there you get like a like a request for repair that's not followed up on, like how do you respond to things that can feel triggering, can feel confronting, particularly, understanding with a trauma-informed lens, understanding that um, someone, it's a really common response for someone who's experienced a lot of trauma to react to something that confronts their like where they feel disrespected as something that's impacting their safety, right? That those responses are very similar, and so helping folks, recognize, okay, how when I feel disrespected, when I feel attacked, how can I sort of get ahead of my natural responses and make sure I don't escalate a situation. Help to mediate issues. What can you do in your organization to mediate when conflicts come up? And then know how to get folks connected to legal assistance. You don't have a magic wand. You can't always make that happen, but just know what are the numbers, what are the hotlines, what are the emails of our legal aid folks. Okay. A lot of this we already covered in the panel, which is great. But communication, right? Making sure that you're establishing from the beginning a relationship of communication, a relationship that you are going to be reaching out and you understand like the communication methods your participant prefers. And also that they know they can talk to you and you are not going to scold them, get rid of them, give up on them, that there's open communication there, and that's important. Really, that focus on lease compliance, the goal here is to keep people in housing. Um, One of the things that we see, like, and we hear working really well is actually like once someone has a lease, um, talk about that as like a basis of your housing stability planning, right? Once someone has a lease, your housing stability planning is naturally going to shift, right? You're moving to a phase of keeping someone in housing, or maybe building their income so they can find housing they like better. Um, Using those lease requirements to identify what's going to be a challenge to you, honestly, like talking to the participant, what's going to be a challenge? What are you worried about with complying with this lease? Maybe it's making your portion of rent. Maybe it's, I know that I stay up really late and I'm worried about, noise complaints. And use that to structure the stability planning. We already heard from our panel, home visits. If someone's up for that, if someone's willing to consent to having you come visit in their home, that can be really helpful. And then make sure that you have ways to try to identify as early as possible when something is happening that could get someone kicked out of their housing, that could lead to like lease violations or eviction. Another checklist. Okay. Talking about budgeting and increasing income, um, a lot of this I think we'll probably have covered, but it's a little more granular than we got into. Definitely know how to connect with employment service providers. Another shout out for the Rapid Rehousing Employment Initiative meetings. Um, Help your client with all of the job search stuff, right? Resumes, references, interviews. With resumes, helping folks understand how, like, maybe they don't have a lot of formal work experience. How do they talk about their strengths? How do they talk about what they're bringing to a position without being able to reference, 5 years of work experience? Practice interviews, life skills programs, or any job readiness programs you have internally. And then definitely credit repair. Credit counseling is a huge, huge resource to know how to get access to. Okay. So we've talked about connecting with landlords. We've talked about, sort of lease and tenancy support. We've talked about income, support networks, right? This is about, in long-term housing stability, this can be one of the most important things because you are going away. You, as the rapid rehousing program, you as the provider, you have to go away because your funding Even our longest funding for rapid rehousing, I think, only goes to 36 months, and most of them are capped at 24. Some of them are capped at 12, right? So rapid rehousing supports, and same with homelessness prevention system, same with a lot of our time-limited programs, you have to be going away. And so what you really want to focus on is what is going to be there? What supports are there in the community that we can connect someone to, give someone information about, to make sure that when our support pulls out, there are other legs of support there. So food assistance, legal aid, the homelessness prevention system, you rapid rehousing providers, anybody who's helping someone get into housing, um, absolutely, when your program ends, make sure they know how to get connected to homelessness prevention, when to do that. They have the numbers, walk them through how to apply, just because, we know that housing stability often recurs, or housing instability often reoccurs, and the homelessness prevention system is a great resource that they can access once they're out of your program. Um, yeah, connect folks if you can connect folks to like transit programs, get uplift passes, get any connection to any resources that are gonna last beyond your program. Okay, with that, I'd love to hear folks, what are some really good community-based supports? So not your program, but other things that you know have been really important supports for the folks. What do you like either always try to get people connected to or give people information about? Or maybe what are some one-off examples that you've seen be really helpful to support clients? Put your resources on the table. Community-based supports.
I'd like to throw one out there, if I may.
Please.
I know this is probably a silly one, but it comes down to, you can't house them unless they have a job. I mean, ultimately, we need them to take over the payments and be able to be self-sufficient. And a lot of that is just peeling back the layers and figuring out what you want to do out there in life. And so kind of always start off my meetings with getting to know you segment, and I have them do personality tests, and they kind of like it because I'm tuning into them, I'm listening to what their interests are, I'm really digging deep into the type of person that they are and what they're passionate about, what they like to talk about. And when I have them do the personality test, then I drop that information into chat gpt, and I put in obviously no names, but all the details that they have shared with me, and it's absolutely amazing what it kicks back, um, of ideas, of resources, um, communities that they can join, ways to volunteer, just, a plethora of information that can really help them. And I get an aha moment like, I thought about that for myself, but I didn't think of it as a job, or, something there that just really just then all of a sudden the passion lights up in them and they go, that's what I want to do. And that has helped me then get them on the path of homes when we can get them also job readiness. So working hand in hand with the educational and the job support community is vital. I really lean
Yeah.
upon them as my biggest allies.
That's such an interesting use of AI. That's really interesting to hear and makes a lot of sense. To just have that our tech of the future help to crunch through something and sort of be that like brain that knows everything that's out there. Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's so fun, and we come up with ideas that we wouldn't have even thought of. They, to turn a passion into something that they didn't even think of, that could be actually a money making opportunity for them is absolutely. It's just fun, and I've learned all sorts of things about career
Mhm.
paths that I didn't even know of.
Yeah, thanks for that. What about other folks? Because I know you're connecting folks to these types of community supports, all the time. I'd love to hear about like, are there food stability resources that you use to give people access to food or free or low cost food? Are there, education stuff you connect folks to, community centers, other types of supports?
Yeah, from because rapid housing, at least my tiered subsidy, doesn't allow that much time to complete those quiz. But if
We
I'm
are,
the right program, there's additional funding, I will point to.
Timothy, your audio is kind of breaking up. I thought it was getting better, but
Oh,
try
how
again.
about now?
Better so far.
Okay. The main, let me know if it goes out again. The main resources. So I find a lot of people are scared to communicate or talk about their mental health or substance use. So I try really hard to normalize that up front. Whenever I do a SPDAT or any of like the biosocial intake, I'm very clear. Like when I say, "Hey, do you have any mental health issues?" I always say depression, anxiety does count. Or if I say, do you have any like physical abuse that happened throughout your, I say, hey, childhood counts. So I can start that conversation and point them towards those resources. Making sure somebody has health care and then bringing them to those the Valley Homeless Healthcare clinics or seeing a primary care physician. I think it's really important to utilize healthcare and normalize the mental health stigmas. That's a big one. When it comes to additional um, rental assistance or food, I always go to the Second Harvest website, filter by distance from their house. In most cases, there's at least one or two churches or food banks that are within a mile or two of their house that they can go to. So that's a really important resource as well.
Mm. Yeah, thanks for that, Timothy.
When it comes to food, especially if they have, uh, you know, are getting subsidized with that, you can go to the farmers markets, and they actually will give you, for $30 worth of credits to the farmers market. So I want to make sure that they realize that they can maximize their dollars. I really stress that point. And then I like to batch cook personally. And so I like to create a community that comes together, and one client brings one item, somebody else brings another, and then we make a very large meal and everybody brings Tupperware. And that then, they're kind of leaving with a couple of, food items that can be shared out. And so that's building community right there. And then they realize that they're not alone. I'm working with transitional youth that are coming from foster care. So, we're really just, building that relationship that you have a family outside. So that's my other little thing I do
Yeah.
for food.
Yeah. I love the community building. I love the food access. I love as a young person, I was so intimidated by cooking. So the support to gain some of those skills for folks who don't have that. Love that. Anything else? Timothy and Amber are really showing up for y'all. Anybody else have resources they want to share? You can put them in the chat. Suggestions, recs for your friends. All right. Well, just as a reminder of just the breadth of what we need to think about when we're thinking about community connection, community resources, the types of supports that people are going to need when they're in your program and are probably going to need after your program, right? Very broad range. This is, thinking about there's a whole bunch of areas of life that a particular person could need support in, could need ongoing resources in. So thinking about childcare, it's a huge one, right? Where do we find childcare? I don't have an answer for you about how do we find childcare in a world where childcare is very scarce and very expensive, but it is an important resource. So knowing what are my go-to low-cost childcare options, what are my options that I can share with someone when those are full, when they're not accepting applications. Um, if you're serving folks who have children under 18, school-age children, young children, knowing about what services schools offer, after-school programs, early childhood programs, and supporting folks to get their kids connected with those can be really important supports for parents as much as they are for children. Um, Financial literacy, understanding budgeting, understanding their own budget, and how to keep on track of that, how to access education, job training, legal services, clothing. So really just encouraging you to think broadly and be asking questions and doing that ongoing needs assessment about what might someone be interested in terms of resources, or what might someone need to meet their goals. Some tips and tricks. So having just a list that you add to a list that you keep updated. Lists of resources are really tough. They're tough to keep updated because funding comes and funding goes, things open, they shut down, their rules change. But having a list that you're sharing with your colleagues can be really helpful. But also having a list of resources, don't let that don't let that box you in, right? Timothy said, be creative, right? You have to be a constant problem solver and constantly like looking for, well, what else is there out there in the community? Um, Veterans, just knowing that if you're serving someone who's a veteran, there are a lot of resources out there. Some of them are restricted based on their discharge status. Some of them are not. So understanding the spectrum of veterans benefits. Um, you yourself understanding and getting experience with the applications and the eligibility criteria for different resources, knowing where the applications are, doing them online with someone if possible. Being able to provide transportation can be key. Um, and then again, you being the person who you're not doing all the work, right? Because there's that like role sharing with a participant. You're not necessarily the one who's filling out all the applications and submitting them, but you're the one who knows what needs to be done. You're the one who can point to this is the application. I can sit with you if you need that. Um, and you can build relationships with the offices that process benefits, with, you know, whoever's on the other end of that phone, right? You can be a person who's called repeatedly, and understands how these things work. Okay. So with that, uh, I want to end by highlighting some of the challenges that you all know that we know happen. But just it's important to think about this intentionally every once in a while and say, okay, is this a barrier? Is this a challenge in our program? Do we need to talk about this as a team? Do I need to talk to my supervisor about this? Do we need to address this? So role confusion, right? Who's doing what? I talked about having a case manager person, whether you call that a case manager, a service coordinator, or a mentor. That person's role should be to focus on the relationship with the participant and to support their planning and their goals. And then if there's a housing specialist, right, they're still working on behalf of the participant, but their focus is a little bit different. Their focus is purely on housing, getting connected to housing. Sometimes they're the people who are focusing on the landlord relationship. Just understanding those roles, particularly to protect that relationship with the client, to make sure that it's always really clear, hey, this person is on your side. Um, and then sometimes a case manager plays maybe too many roles. That can be really challenging. That's something that like we really encourage, that peer sharing, using your internal supports at your organization. When clients aren't, they like for them right now, housing isn't their top priority. They maybe have other things that feel more essential to their survival right now. Um, and that can lead to, a perception that this client isn't engaging. Why is that? What is underneath that? Why does it look like, from my perspective, they're not making this housing plan their top priority? Um, yeah, it can be hard to track outcomes. And just again, like remember to celebrate those successes. Celebrate yourself, celebrate the work that you and your colleagues do, even when it feels like you're not having the success that you want. Like the fact there's always something that you're doing, there's always support that you're providing. And then celebrate successes with participants. It is worth taking time to do that. And with that, we have a couple of resources to point to that will be in these slides, and the slides will go out to you. But there's some pretty pretty interesting resources there on housing stability planning. And then we have our NAEH Rapid Rehousing Toolkit that we love to point folks to. So I will include those links in the slides when they are sent out. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all to those of you who came to both of the sessions of the Rapid Rehousing workshops. A couple things I want to say in closing. One, I want to echo our panel in saying thank you so much for the work that you do. I have never done the work that you do, but I have worked with a lot of people and talked with a lot of case managers, and it is hard. It is very hard work. So if it feels hard, it's because it's hard. And it is also, I've talked with a lot of people who've been in programs. It's also incredibly valuable and incredibly impactful. So I can say that from that perspective, you are making a difference to somebody's day every day. So thank you so much for the work that you do. I also want to say, connect, right? As I think it was Juan said, use the Rapid Rehousing Employment Initiative. Those meetings are a great regular chance to connect with your peers, to feel like you're part of this community that you're part of. But also, talk to your colleagues at your agency, talk to each other, build cross-agent like relationships between agencies. You're all part of the same team, and it can help to see the size of the team that you're a part of. Okay. Thank you all so much. And I hope that your weekend is what you need it to be, whatever that looks like.